We go. Okay, so now being 6:15, I'll call the open session of the Board of Selectmen to order. We had a brief executive session. We started at 5:45, and we're now in open session. So the first item we're going to be taking is discussing Area 58. So Mark, did you want to take the lead with this?
I can. I think probably the subject was really brought up initially by John. And
sure.
As I understand it, this is about our readiness or the availability as soon as we're ready to go to a hybrid format. Maybe
John, did you want to take the lead?
Sure. I think Mark just did it. I guess the question is Carver now able to, and are they broadcasting live while at the same time allowing access for through Zoom or some other similar?
Yes, we're actually doing it in Carver and Halifax.
So people can call come in through Zoom and leave a text message or however.
Well, generally they're on a big screen in the room and therefore part of the meeting in that way.
So similar to what we're doing now.
Similar to what we're doing now, and then we have it as an input in the robotics in the Selectmen meeting room. So it actually becomes, if you were to, for instance, to speak to one person or need to speak to one person on the Zoom, we could pull them up and have them on camera.
Okay.
There as well. So yeah, usually the audio is going through there and everything.
Now, it seemed to me last time we discussed this, there were two issues. One was that we needed a dedicated IP address. And I assume that's not a big issue. That's something you could probably do for us.
They would have to be done through the town hall. My understanding is the technology has improved a little bit. So we may only need an internet connection. I'd have to confirm that. We'd want to test it obviously in advance to make sure everything looked like it was copacetic going forward with it. But generally speaking, a dedicated IP gives us a lot more control, make sure we've got the bandwidth we need.
Yeah.
But we currently are doing it without that in the Selectmen meeting room in Halifax. Anyway, I know that. Actually, in the Great Hall, we've been doing it as well.
Okay. So that's something we can test and very quickly make a decision around. Now, the other thing was that, as I understood it, you had to initiate the meeting.
In order for us to be able to record the meeting on our end, and in order to put it on the channel, we have to initiate the meeting.
Now, so let me ask you this. Could we initiate the meeting and then record it and have it go back to you and have it still be live to the audience?
No.
No, okay.
No, for whatever reason, the way the program works, we have to be the initial author of the Zoom in order for it to be able to go to the channel.
Okay.
Now, it may be a little bit, I say that, and that was when we were doing just Zoom. With the Zoom as an input on the switcher, it may change that up a bit. I'd have to test that. Generally speaking, the other towns have been having us host the Zoom, so it hasn't been an issue. So I don't think we've tested it since initially testing it. So I will test that in the next few days and make sure, because I'm thinking now, if we're coming in through the actual recording, the equipment we have there in town hall, we're actually going there and we're not just doing a Zoom and we're bringing it as an input, it's possible that may work that way. I will have to test it though to make sure.
Okay. Can you also let us know what costs would be associated with it? Is there any, either software or hardware type equipment that would be needed?
The only thing that would probably be needed for the dedicated IP is I don't know how many Plympton normally has or currently has. If you only have one, the cost to go to 5 is like $25 a year. It's very minimal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and I believe that's right. At least it was when last I checked. But yeah, so the cost, other than that, we'd be taking care of everything. We'd bring the extra computer, we'd have everything hooked in and get it to work.
Now, Liz, I believe you had an issue with Area 58 being the initiator of the meeting. Is that?
It's not so much an issue, but I think it could present problems in the event we needed to schedule a meeting in quick order. Like say, for instance, if it were, obviously an emergency meeting would fall into that category, but also say if we realized that we needed to schedule something very quickly, like within 48 hours, and we needed to rush to get it posted. We'd have
You
to
broke up
wait.
for a minute.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. It just broke up for a minute.
So
Probably my-
say we need to post something quickly for a meeting 48 hours out. My concern would be the time frame in which we have to connect with Area 58, wait for them to send us the information to put on the agenda, and then the time it would take to get that to the clerk's office for posting. I think it could work very well for regular meetings because we more or less know our schedule. But I think for something, if we needed to do something on the fly and kind of quickly, I think that it could put Area 58 in kind of an unfair situation if they weren't maybe expecting that sort of thing, and it could cause issues for us.
Couldn't we just revert back to a Zoom meeting in those cases? It's not going to be that many emergencies, I would think, and do it ourselves.
We could. And the other piece that we need to think about is if we move to a hybrid option and say you post it that way on your agenda, you give people both the option to show up in person and to be on Zoom. The only downside to doing that, and I don't think it's enough of a downside not to do it, but say you had a technology difficulty, by right, it's not a valid meeting. Because if you give people both options, they need to be able to access both options. So say, for instance, you posted both options as a hybrid and we had a snowstorm. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, now we're only going to do Zoom because you made that option. So you'd have to cancel the meeting. Same thing on the technology Zoom side of things. If there were a problem with Zoom, you can't just say, oh, well, you know, we're all here in person, so it's fine. You have to make both options fully accessible for people if they're posted that way. Now, I'm not certain. I don't think it's been around enough for the state to really have any sort of guidance to this effect, but I'm wondering if a good way around that would be posting in person when we're back in person and making the Zoom option available more as like a convenience option, but maybe not posting the Zoom part on the agenda. I don't know. There's different ways that we could go about it, and I'm sure we could find something that works. But I think Zoom is here to stay, and it promotes a better turnout for us. And I think it makes it a lot easier, especially for people who maybe are on other boards and committees or have a full-time day job that might not enable them to get out.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
definitely worth pursuing.
Could we talk to Carver and maybe also Duxbury if you think it makes sense, but Carver just to make, I mean, they must have addressed these problems.
Sure.
Yeah, my goal is to see that we are back live, but with Zoom capability so that people can be there in person or by video, and that we meet all the law, you know.
Rich, one technical question. I had
Yes.
a miserable experience yesterday of attending a 6-hour seminar at a hybrid model. I'm on Zoom, and the audio for those of us on Zoom was horrible within the room. Are we going to have clear audio, say, for the audience making comments along the way? Are the Zoom people going to be able to hear that?
Normally, so the issue sometimes can become an issue of bandwidth, which can muddy that up a bit. But generally speaking, we haven't had a real problem with that.
Okay, even without a microphone?
Yeah. What we've generally done is we've got, again, it's the sound from the TV or from the monitor is going directly into the system, and it's actually got its own microphone jack. So we're controlling that there. So as long as the internet signal is strong enough, it's not a problem.
And then I guess my only other question is, so other than the dedicated IP line or whatever, what kind of lead time do you think you need for us to say we're up or we want to be up and going?
If you can give us at least a couple of days so we can go test it, that would be great. I mean, if you can give us a week, fantastic. Once we're in
Okay.
place and doing it, it won't be a problem. It'll be just
Yeah.
basically, it'll be status quo. We'll assume that's what's going on and have everything basically in place.
I don't think this is.
Could we do a
imminent.
little mock selectmen's meeting just to see if it worked? You know, not a real one, but just with a
Sure.
few live people and
Yeah, that's
see if we
definitely
can-
possible.
We could practice being selectmen.
I know, it's a scary thought.
Hey, Rich, I've got a question for you too.
Sure.
How do you initiate a meeting? Is that something you can do remotely, or do you have to be in the 58 studio to do that?
No, I can initiate it remotely.
Okay.
Yeah.
What boards in Carver are using the hybrid model?
Selectmen, FinCom, Planning, and the school committee.
Okay, all right. I attended a selectmen's meeting and it wasn't hybrid. I didn't see any screen with people who had dialed in. I mean, maybe nobody did, which would have been surprising, but yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that.
Okay, when did you attend that meeting? Do you know?
It was, oh gosh, it was a while back. It was probably maybe 3 months ago, and they were interviewing, oh gosh, women for a position on school committee, I believe, that they were filling a school committee seat by appointment for
Okay.
a term. So it was late fall, early winter, but there was no screen with showing people from home, and it was a packed house. So I'd be
Okay.
surprised.
I'm kind of
Yes,
surprised. Maybe they didn't request it on that meeting.
Okay,
That must be the
Okay.
case, because
okay.
I know tomorrow we've got a nightmare, but it's a whole nother thing. But
Don't tell us that, Rich.
yeah. Well, no, they're
You're
just
trying to sell this.
They want to shoot from a place we've never shot before.
Okay, all
We've
right.
never been into, and they may want to go live, they may not. That's the only thing. So
Okay,
it's a little bit of a trick when you don't know what the room looks like or anything else, but
all right. So it sounds
it'll be
like
fun.
it'll be a work in progress. More to
Yes.
come. Very
yeah, but
good.
we've done it from the Great Hall in Halifax, from the Selectmen Room in both Halifax and Carver, from the high school auditorium in Carver. That might be it. It's possible we did one from one of the lower rooms at the Carver Town Hall as well.
Well, if we could start with the selectmen, I think that would be a good test, and then we can see if other boards want to get in.
Actually,
we're
one other
interested.
thing we did is we decided we were going to try it and go crazy, and we did the Thanksgiving football game and streamed it live on Thanksgiving morning from Carver. So
I'm
Okay.
excited about this. So can we put some dates and say, well, within a month, we can at least know whether it's working or not?
sure. Yeah, you let me know when you want me to have it, when you want to do the test, and I'll make time to make it happen.
If you could lay out the steps that you see us needing to do,
Okay,
okay, so that we can get our part done, and then we'll follow your lead.
all right, good enough. Give me a little time to do that. Let's say I'll have that to you the beginning of next week.
That's fine.
All right.
That sounds great, Rich. Thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure. I'm available anytime you guys need me. Somehow I did this on my signature on the on the email, it's actually my cell phone. So if anyone needs to get in touch with me, it is there.
Great.
So,
Okay. Thank
Got
you,
a
Rich,
long
very
flight
much.
back
yeah,
from
thank you very much.
All
Wensley.
right, thank you.
Wensley?
Good night.
Bye-bye.
All right,
See
so
ya.
the next item on our agenda are, we've got 2 public hearings, and these are hearings that, to give you a little history, in 2018, the town adopted a policy where if land came to us under 61, 61A, or 61B, right of first refusals, that we would adopt this process for transparency and to ensure that both residents who have concerns have an opportunity to voice them and be heard, and that and if there were interested committees or organizations in the town in these properties, that they would have the option to speak up as well. Conservation, open space, recreation, yeah, anybody. We would request their input in this process. So now being 6:30, I'll call the public hearing to order. The first one is consideration of first refusal option under MGL Chapter 61A, Section 14, pertaining to Assessors Map Parcel 8-1-1, Ring Road in Plympton. There was a full advertisement for both of these hearings that ran in the Halifax Express, and the hearing notices were also published and posted in the townhouse. So do we have the applicant or anyone here to speak to the to present these parcels?
Yes, you have Kirsten Eliason. I work with the developer for the project.
Great, perfect. All right, did you want to give us a little bit of background on the project?
Sure. So the project, which we're referring to as Ring Road Solar, comprises both of the Dunham and the Korea properties that we'll be talking about tonight. This is a 2 megawatt AC dual use solar and agricultural project, which means that the solar array will be installed over the existing cranberry bogs, and the cranberry bogs will continue to be harvested for the life of the project. The project is participating in the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources SMART program, and SMART stands for Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target. And that program was established to support the development of solar in Massachusetts. So this is the program that the project will be using for payment of the electricity that it generates. But I think a key portion of this too, just to reiterate, is that the project is being built over the existing cranberry bogs, and they will continue to be harvested for the life of the project. And what we've done for the right of first refusal notice, or for the 61A removal, is removing the perimeter of the solar array and then also of the major equipment associated with the project. So that's the acreage that would be removed from 61A.
All right, can you repeat what the acreage was on this first parcel?
Yeah, so the first parcel we're talking about, I think, is 8-1-1. So the total acreage of that parcel is 14.6 acres. And the acreage that we're proposing to be converted out of 61A is about 5.76 acres.
Great, thank you. Okay, is there anyone that would, well, first, Kristen, do you have anything else that you wanted to say?
No, not for this first parcel. I can give you the acreages for the next one. Yep.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, yeah, we'll handle that one when this one's over. So is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this movement of the land out of 61A? All right, seeing no hands, hearing no voices, is there anyone who is opposed that would like to speak?
Christine, can I just mention that both this project was sent to, or a description of it was sent to boards, commissions, committees in town. And no one made comment or suggested that we should exercise our right of first refusal.
And Mark, that was for both properties, correct?
It was.
Okay. All right. So Selectmen, any questions for Kristen or any concerns?
No concerns, and I would prefer not to exercise our right of first refusal.
John, any thoughts?
No, I think we've discussed this. I'm fine.
All right, I agree. Okay, I'll make a motion that the town not exercise our right of first refusal under MGL Chapter 61A, Section 14, pertaining to the Assessors Map Parcel 8-1-1, Ring Road in Plympton. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay. All right. Kristen, how about the second parcel?
So the second parcel is the career property, which is 8-2-29. And the total acreage for that parcel is 41 acres, and we're proposing to convert and to sell the 8.4 acres.
All right, once again, this hearing was posted and advertised in the Halifax Reporter. So Kristen has reported on the full acreage. This also is a dual use, Kristen? Okay.
Yes, correct. So, yep.
All right.
I can go through the overview if necessary.
Okay, do you want to give us a quick overview on this one too?
Sure. It's the, well, I guess I could just say it is a part of the same project, Ring Road Solar, that the previous parcel that we just discussed is a part of. So together they total the 2 megawatts AC and dual use solar and agricultural project that will be constructed over the existing cranberry bogs on both properties.
So Kristen, can you just remind us how many megawatts the combined projects on Plympton land, how many megawatts it will be?
On Plympton, I think it's about 70%. I want to say ballpark, and I can give you the exact number, but I believe it's 70% is on the Plympton property, and the rest is in Kingston.
And so the megawatts on each are here.
Let me just do quick math here. So the array of the project, which is measured in the DC size, because that's how solar energy is generated, it will be approximately 4.4 megawatts DC in Plympton and about 2.2 in Kingston.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, and as Mark reported earlier, we reached out to all the boards and committees, and there was no interest in any of, or none of them expressed any interest in the town acquiring this property. So is there anyone on the call that would like to speak in favor of this, of the town or of the project, or the town exercising their right of first refusal? All right, seeing no hands, hearing no voices, is there anyone who is opposed and would like to speak against the project or the town acquiring the land? Okay, seeing no hands, hearing no voices, I can report that on both of these, there has been no one from the public who has spoke either in favor or opposed to these. Selectmen, any questions or
Nope.
concerns on these?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion that the town not exercise our right of first refusal under MGL Chapter 61A, Section 14, pertaining to Assessors Map and Parcel 8-2-29 Ring Road in Plympton. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. All right. Thank you, Kristen, so much for coming in and speaking with us. At this time, I will close the public hearings on these two parcels.
Thank you all for your time.
Okay. All right. Mark, can we vote on that? So I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing on these two parcels, the first refusal. Do we have a second? Okay, second, Mark. Roll call vote, Mr. Trainer.
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, all right. So moving on, it looks like we have got people here from The Rock to join us for that discussion. Not sure if we have everybody from Finance Committee. I see we've got Chief Silva with us. We've got, I saw, yeah, Captain Schusted. Nate, are you on the call?
I don't see Nate on the call. Christine, I'm wondering if you don't mind, would we be able to get the 2 appointments done? I noticed that Mike Slauson has connected from the library. And I just thought maybe so that he could.
Sure. Yeah, why
forward
don't we
with
do
the
that while
meeting.
we're waiting for Nate, because I know Nate wants to participate in the call. All right, so
Okay.
we've got a request for 2 appointments, and the first is Ming Jessica. Is it Lu or Lau? How do you say your last name?
Wow.
Lau, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so Ming Jessica Lau to the Board of Library Trustees until May 21st, 2022. So Mike, I think, did you bring these forward, this appointment forward to us?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I'd like to recommend Jessica for a trustee position. She's a frequent library user. I see her at least once a week. From our discussions, I know she's a library supporter, and I think she'll be a strong advocate for the library. She's already read the trustee handbook, and she's familiarized herself with the role of the trustee. So I think she'd make an excellent addition to the board.
Beautiful. And then this will be until the next election, correct? To fill a unexpired term?
Yes, that's correct. And then and
Beautiful.
hopefully this will encourage Jessica to run for the position as well.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. All right, so I'll make a motion that we appoint Ming Jessica Lau to the Board of Library Trustees until May 21st, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second, roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Welcome, Jessica, and thank you so much for volunteering in
Yes,
this
thank
important
you.
role. Thank you,
forward to
and
working
thank you,
with you
Mike.
guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome. All right. So are we still waiting for Nate? Is he, Marilyn, do you know, is Nate going to be joining us tonight?
I thought so, yes.
Okay, and then I think we were figuring this was going to be about 6:40.
We
All
have
right.
one
We
more
have another
appointment,
appointment?
Christine.
Thank you. All right, so we've got Arthur Kinsman to Bylaw Review Committee until dissolved. And I don't know if Arthur is with us. I don't see him, but I think Johnny's one of your neighbors and has been wanting to get
He's
involved.
my neighbor, and I put him in touch with Alan, and I'm very supportive of him joining the committee.
All right, very good. All right, so I'll make a motion. We appoint Arthur Kinsman to the Bylaw Review Committee until dissolved. Do we have a second?
Second. Second.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay. All right. So, and welcome, Arthur. That's a very important committee in town as well, and who's doing some really terrific work. All right. So we still don't have Nate. I hate to start without him. I don't know if we can send him a text to see if he's planning on joining us.
I just sent him a text.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay. All right. So while we're waiting for Nate, let's see. Bree, can you report on the warrants paid?
Hi, sorry about that. My pen died. Yes. Total warrants for the past 2 weeks total $10,942.74. $10,942.74.
Thank you, Bree. All
You're
right, so
welcome.
we got the appointments done. I don't think we can really do the minutes. I mean, we might be able to do the minutes real quick. Do you want to try to get the minutes from February 28th knocked out?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. All right. So, Mark, you had a suggestion for modifying the appointment section on page 1.
I did.
Okay. All right. Did you have any other changes that you wanted to recommend?
Yeah, there's a typo on page 2 where it says the heating instead of the hearing. Oh, and actually, let's see, on updates and discussions, the third bullet, the next to last sentence, to be held with a hearing, it should be with a public hearing. And then
Okay.
the next sentence, the hearing, not the heating.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mark?
Nope.
Okay, John, any
No,
recommended
Mark picked
changes?
up on the public hearing. That
Okay,
was all I saw at the time.
okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from February 28th with Mark's amendment to the appointment section and the 2 modifications to the update and discussion section number 3.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, all right. So we banged out the minutes here. All right. Welcome,
Mark,
Dan.
you'll send me those tomorrow?
Yeah, I will.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I can help you with those, Bree. I'll get you the information tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, Liz, did you want to, I don't know if you can give a quick update, town administrator update?
I have a few items in correspondence.
Okay, did you want to do that?
Sure. So if you could make a motion and vote to appoint Thomas Bouchard as alternate plumbing and gas inspector, effective immediately until June 30th of 2022. He has been our alternate for a while now, but there was some question about when he had last come and had been sworn in. And we have a need for our alternate within the next week or so. So this is very time sensitive and not something foreseen. Again, I think it's already all set. You've already voted to appoint him, but it would just help clear the record and make it more clear for everyone if we do that again.
Liz, what was the end date?
June 30th, 2022.
6/30/2022. All right, I'll make a motion. We appoint Thomas Bouchard as the alternate plumbing and gas inspector until June 30th, 2022. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, all right. What else do you have, Liz?
So we received the paperwork from the state to reappoint Brian Kling as our animal inspector. Again, this is something somewhat time sensitive because the appointment comes up first thing in April. And I think it would be wise to get that taken care of now. If we do want to, for purposes of making it official, ratify that at the next meeting, I think that would be a wise move. But if you were willing to take this vote tonight, at least on a preliminary basis, that will enable us to get the proper paperwork filled out for him so that there's no delay in getting it to the state on time. But then we can put this on the March 28th agenda for ratification.
Do we need a date or just to vote to initiate appointing Brian Kling as the animal inspector?
That will do it for now, and then we can put the dates and everything when we ratify it. But just
Okay.
something so we can get started on that paperwork and have it ready to go.
All right, I'll make a motion that we initiate the appointment procedure for Brian Kling to serve as the town of Plympton animal inspector. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. Okay, Anything else, Liz?
We have a request from someone from town who runs a meditation group called Plymouth Zen. And she's wondering if her meditation group could use the room at the old townhouse once per week. So it's a request for use of that town property.
Do we
And I
have
know
a
we've been-
town? Did she fill out the form?
She did fill out the form, yes.
And she has insurance and all of that?
That's on file, and I believe we were checking, and Bree can chime in if I'm incorrect, but I believe we were checking with legal counsel just to make sure that they fill out the proper waiver, because legal had helped us with a waiver for council on aging. So we wanted to use that same thing basically for this activity as well. So we were just waiting on getting that in place. And then this woman would have the people doing the class would have to sign the waiver, same as the council on aging activities. So I would say pending that.
All right,
This is not.
John and Mark, any questions?
This is not sponsored, I take it, by the Council on Aging. This is just a resident coming forward.
Correct.
I would only say I've had some dealings with the Plymouth Zen group, and in the past, they've been a very nice bunch. They're very quiet during silent meditation.
So you know him, Mark.
I do.
Okay.
I don't know the individual that's making the request. I know the organization, and I know them from the past to be a fine group.
So Liz, you'd be looking for us to make a motion to authorize Plymouth Zen to use it with providing all of the paperwork and insurance and all of that is squared away?
Yes.
All right, and they're not looking to use it at a time that it's being used by someone else, by another town group?
No.
Okay. All right, so I'll make a motion that we authorize or allow the Plymouth Zen group to use the old townhouse, provided that they give us all of the necessary paperwork and waivers or insurance documents to be determined by the town administrator.
I'll second that. I would like to note, though, I think this can be done as a trial. I think we want to be careful not to necessarily set a precedent for everyone that thinks they want to use that. I think this is a reasonable thing to try and see how it goes.
Why don't we do do you want to do like a 30-day trial? Or is that not long enough?
What if we just say that we reserve the right to change our mind at any point in time, since it's a town-owned building?
Yeah, I mean, my comment is a little bit less that group. I mean, I think we should have that ability to get out of it if it doesn't feel right, but just want to be careful that we don't end up with, I don't know, 6 applications for Friday afternoon and people upset because we extended this courtesy to one and then not others.
Okay.
I mean, in general, I'd like to see this as we reopen after COVID, but just an opportunity to see what works and doesn't work.
I agree with Mark. We also have some things in there in the building that are very precious, and want to make sure that we know what's going on before we just have any group coming in. So I like
Okay.
Mark's idea.
Okay, so did the town reserves the right to revoke use at any time?
Yeah, or postpone, I think, because we also may have some work that needs to be done in the building, and so we may have to, particularly in that room.
Okay. Do we have to vote on this tonight, Liz? Could we put this on the next agenda?
We can put it on the next one. We're also, I think, something to keep in mind, we're not entering into a contract with these people. We're just simply telling them, yes, you can use the building on these dates. So we're not bound by anything. They're not paying us to use the building or anything like that. But that said, I think it's good to make the provisions clear.
Okay, why don't we hold this off until our next meeting? I'll withdraw my motion. I didn't realize the leader wasn't from Plympton, that this was going to be an out-of-town group. So I think, right, that, maybe we handle these a little bit different. So why don't we put this
I
on
missed
our
that.
next agenda?
Someone
thought-
is from Plympton. I think she's from, I think she's actually lives on Palmer Road.
Okay,
Yeah.
It would be
All right.
nice if she
Name of
could,
The name of the group is Plymouth Zen, but the main person who's making the request is a town resident.
all right, well, why don't we put them on the agenda for
Yeah.
our next meeting, and they can come in and talk to us about it. And
Great.
and maybe by then we'll have all their paperwork, and hopefully some work will have been done at the old townhouse, and it would be available for them to use. Okay. All right, anything else, Liz, for us?
Nope, that was all.
Okay, all right. I think that we're just gonna have to get started. I wish Nate was here, but
He was
it's-
trying to sign in.
He just
Oh, he is.
joined.
oh, perfect, very good. Well, thank you, people from the Rock that have joined us, the representatives, and people from our public safety for hanging in there with us while we're waiting for the chairman of the Finance Committee to come. His participation is really important for this discussion. So thank you for your patience while we did some housekeeping items to take up some time. So I believe Nate is joining us. So is he in yet?
No, I wonder if there's some sort of a glitch.
Here comes a new phone-in person.
See if that's him, because the icon for him still says joining. So I think there might be a glitch.
All right, well, while he's joining, why don't we let the people from the Rock introduce themselves and start with their presentation for us. There's Nate. Okay. All right, so welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. No, not a problem at all. We're happy to be here. For those that don't know me, I'm Michael Mahoney. I'm the director of the Rock, and joining me is Deputy Director Joe Crean. We were invited by Liz and the chiefs to come speak to anyone who had questions about the intermunicipal agreement being renewed for the coming 2 fiscal years. So we're here to answer any questions that anybody might have. I believe everyone should have a copy of the agreement to have reviewed. There is, unfortunately, nobody likes to see them, but there is a rate increase. We had meetings roughly 3 years ago at this point, and we followed that trajectory that we had laid out of a 3-year plan to step up from $50,000 up to the $200,000 for an equitable share amongst the other towns that are members of the Rock. But in short, I mean, I have budgetary stuff that I can share with everybody. But mostly we're here just to answer questions and hope we can explain how we landed where we are today.
Nate, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. All right. John or Mark, did you want to start, or did you want the Finance Committee to start, or did Public Safety want to speak? I'm not sure who would like to go first on this.
I'm glad to jump in with a couple questions. So this is Mark Russo, one of the selectmen. Welcome, Michael and Joseph. Michael, when we met 3 years ago, we did have kind of a structure in place, and I think it went 125, 150, 175. And then with the expectation or the hope that if a town joined, that if anything, that 175 would go down. So we do have a little sticker shock here, with the expectation that if anything, we were going to be 175 or less, and now we see 200. What brought around the need for that sticker shock?
Yeah, and I apologize. I mean, there seems to be some confusion because the town, when Chief Dillon was still in, Liz and Chief Dillon had come over to meet with Chief Nord and I. This was prior to me becoming the department head. And it went from $0 to $50,000. For the first several years that Plympton was a member of the ROC, 911 was footing the entire bill. As the ROC expanded, the share of grant funding being allocated to Plympton was askew. It wasn't equitable to the other towns, to be frank. The 3-year step plan that we laid out went 100, 150, 200. I have the original emails, the documents from when we met back then that I'm happy to share. So that's where we landed. So I'm honestly not sure where the shock is, to be Mark. I hate to sound uncouth, but that was the plan all along, to get to this point, to the $200,000 mark.
Mike, can I chime in here, Chief Silva?
Yes, sir.
So I kind of have to agree with Selectman Russo here. It was long understood that, I guess it's economies of scale would be the right term. As more communities joined into the ROC team, there's more of the burden shared across the board. Now, in the past couple of years, you brought on Hanson, and perhaps more significantly brought on Hanover. I think it was made very clear to us that as more towns joined, that the cost of your operation would then be spread out. I have sticker shock over the 200,000, significant sticker shock, to be honest with you. We were at minimum assuming it would stay the same based on your expansion. So I guess it's a two-part question. One, what happened to that? I can't go back and look at emails at the moment, but what happened to that, at least understanding that I think everyone in this room had? And number two, how did you come up with 200,000? And is that the same as you did in the beginning based on call volume? We had a lot of discussion on that last year. So how did we arrive at that $200,000 number? And is that the same for all towns, or what are the other towns paying? I'm not sure where this goes.
Sure, Chief. I'll try to answer those in order as best I can. So the plan originally, and to get to that 200,000 mark, was laid out as best we could. We do expect an economy of scale, but in order to get to that economy of scale, we had to rectify what was a shortfall prior to. So Plympton wasn't paying an equitable share all along. 911 was footing the vast majority, if not the entirety, of Plympton's assessment. As the grant money comes in now, it's allocated and deducted from the total operating budget, and the remainder of the total operating budget is split using that same formula, Chief, that you mentioned, of call volume and population amongst the member towns. Plympton's share landed at 200,000 based on the current operating budget minus what is expected for 911 grant funding in FY23 and 24. The way the grant guidelines lay out new communities joining since FY20 are fully funded by 911 for their first 3 years. So Hanson and Hanover are being paid for by the state. They are not paying a share yet. In year 4, they begin paying their share, which is why we're entering a 2-year agreement, so that come year 4, we will be splitting the pie the 6 ways to include Hanson and Hanover.
So I guess my question is,
currently all of the,
I don't mean to interrupt
all
you,
of
but you
these-
just mentioned,
sorry.
Mike, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you just mentioned we're splitting it 6 ways in the future once their grant funding, if you say, has dried up. If I'm not mistaken, I think Hanson kicks in their share out of their own budget around FY24. I don't know what Hanover is. So then and I get that. I understand what you're saying. So I guess my question is, am I hearing you correctly, or am I misunderstanding that it would be that your total amount due, if you will, divided by 6? Or are we still back to where we were a year ago when we were discussing a formula based on call volume? How did we come up with this 200,000?
So that's, sorry, Chief, I hadn't finished yet, but so Hanson and Hanover are still covered by 911 grants for this coming year and the following year. However, the remaining towns, so Duxbury, Rochester, Plympton, and Halifax, are all still paying based on the call volume model. Allowing for minimal standard deviation, all of the smaller communities that are members of the ROC produce roughly the same workload based on call volume and population, that being Rochester, Halifax, and Plympton, all of which, and this is public record, you can ask all of the other towns, they're all paying $200,000 for FY 23 and 24.
Okay, so you're saying,
Duxbury, on the other hand, is paying just over $1 million.
I'm sorry, they're paying what? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Duxbury's budget, we had town meeting just this past Saturday, and they
Yep.
budgeted just over 1 million.
So if I follow that theory, I guess you're telling me that Plimpton's call volume, based on a population of under 3,000, is equal to that of Halifax in FY 23. I have no idea what Rochester is, and potentially Hanson in FY 24 when they kick in. Is that a correct statement?
Hanson would likely be slightly more, but
Slightly.
Plympton, Rochester.
So what is
Halifax.
the difference in call volume between Plympton and Halifax?
Currently, using the past 6 months, believe it or not, Chief, you've done more than they have.
It's what? I'm having a hard time with the audio. I'm sorry. I'm in my truck. I didn't catch that answer. I'm sorry.
Since Hanover has joined, Plympton does more call volume than Halifax does.
What are you calling call volume? Because clearly fire responses, that is untrue. Or maybe
So
I'm
it's
misreading
the
my own numbers.
It's the same metric we've always used. It's every CAD entry, administrative task, everything else that's done. So when we met 3 years ago, we discussed this. Plympton is very, very busy when it comes to traffic control, community policing, police details, et cetera, et cetera. Your ambulance definitely runs less than Halifax it does, but your police department is far busier than theirs.
So my police department runs more, my ambulance runs less, and you're basing it on CAD entries. Am I correct?
Yep, total call volume and impact on the dispatch system.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree with those numbers 100%, but I see the formula working in. So despite a change, despite a considerable difference in population, despite a considerable difference in run volume, I mean tires on the road volume, not inspectional services or community related events or things like that, but actual physical 911 calls, we somehow are tipping the scales because we log our fire prevention inspections, our whatever Chief Hoffman's doing with the police department, community policing and such. Is that the case? Is that what you're saying? Or because if that's the case, I don't understand what we're paying you to do.
Well, the fact is, you pay for the impact on the dispatcher. Every time a police officer makes a motor vehicle stop, a dispatcher gets involved. Every time a police officer wants to run a criminal background check, a dispatcher gets involved. Every time that someone calls the fire station and no one's home and the call comes to us, a dispatcher gets involved. It generates workload. And you know better than anyone, Chief, the number one expense in public safety is personnel. We need the personnel to field the phones and whatnot and manage the incoming radio traffic, incoming 911 traffic. Has to be there 24/7. Doesn't matter if it's a check at the Dennett school or a gunfight at the OK Corral.
Okay, I see your point there, but did I hear you correctly? You're in essence charging us for phone calls that go up there to the non-emergency related? That's factoring into this?
No. It's the same formula. It's the same formula we've always used, Chief.
Mike, I understand, but maybe I'm confused by the same formula, so please hear me out. If I heard you correctly just then, you said that if a phone call, nobody, I think your words, nobody was home at the fire station, so it trunks over to your division. which should have reduced considerably with the new phone system. But now that we have a phone tree and such. But that is actually in essence creating a cost for us, because on occasion calls go to you that are non-emergency. I'm just trying to get a picture of how this works out and how what I feel is now an inequitable situation.
So this is the same metric used for all of the member communities. It's purely calculated by, so you're familiar with the IMC, right? So the way that the formula
Yes, I
works
am. It's a
is-
horrible program. Horrible.
I agree,
but I am
which
familiar.
is why we're spending $3 million to replace it. But it's the same metric across the board. So for every entry, everything that generates an entry into IMC, and that's one thing that fails to be seen by many of the boards, chiefs, and things like that. It's not just 911 calls that generate a dispatchable event. In fact, 80% of our call volume is generated by either business line telephone calls or things called in via radio from whether it's Plymouth County Control, an officer on patrol. 911 is the vast minority of what is actually done by the Rock.
So it's the business aspect that's killing me. In other words, somebody calls up, they ring to my desk through the phone tree. I'm not there. It trunks over to you. I think that's the right word. And one of your dispatchers answers, "Hey, is the chief there?" "No, he's not." "Okay, fine." So that is actually, I guess if we're using some sort of a point system, that's a point of contact, I suppose, but it's also now a price. Is that correct?
Not necessarily for something like that, where they're just looking for you to leave a message, but if it generated an IMC ticket, so someone called the fire station and y'all were out at a medical or something like that, and they were, I don't know, a residential lockout, something that's not an emergent thing where you'll deal with it once you've cleared up the medical or things like that, and it generated an IMC ticket, then yes, that's a tick on your thing.
Okay, so it's a non-emergency, but it's still something that we have to serve the public with. I understand.
Correct. And
so what happens when, and Captain Schusted can jump into this, and I don't mean to be taking over the whole conversation, you guys. I'm sorry, I'll be quiet after this, but we're noticing some jump in IMC numbers that are training numbers that have nothing to do with us. And can you assure me that those are not part of this count? And do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do, and I can. It's a completely separate database for reporting.
Well, then how come they're showing up on our IMC when we're running our reports? Captain Schusted, you want to chime in on this? What you found going on this past couple of weeks?
Yeah, we've had quite an increase in numbers being assigned to us. That when I went to enter the fire report, it was actually a building property check in Halifax or a 911 accidental incident in Hanover. There were also apparatus from other towns that were assigned to some of my calls. For example, Duxbury ambulance assigned to a Plympton call, or a Hanson ambulance assigned to a Plympton call, which I just erased out of the call. I don't know if that initiates a call for those other towns, or if that's happened on our side. If other towns have had our apparatus assigned to their town, I'm not sure. I assume that's a data entry or a personnel entry mistake. But in recent times, I've been coordinating with the Rock as far as these incidents that have been created that are actually police incidents. And apparently they found that it was actually when they were training new hires, for some reason, the program was initiating a fire call for Plympton Fire Department.
Yeah, so that is, the majority of that is contributed to we're replacing our emergency medical dispatch software. As part of that, every dispatcher has to partake in 60 test calls. The IT division discovered a problem where the training division, the training side of the new EMD software was populating into the live side of IMC. That has been corrected, but that is not where my reports come from for the fiscal side of IMC. That's strictly for your run numbers for infers, things like that. And that has been corrected and is being deleted from the database, as we speak. And I think you're aware, Captain, and I know you are, Chief, that this new EMD software is a massive undertaking, and this was just a glitch in the mix as we were deploying the new software.
So
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, Chief. You
No,
can go ahead.
No, please go.
So this might sound like a naive question, but what happens if we can't afford this increase for fiscal 23? We're already pretty far along in our budgeting process. Based on the time frame that you sent us the draft contract, when I opened it at first, I assumed that we wouldn't be looking at something like a $50,000 increase with that kind of short notice. We're a very small town, and I just think from a budgeting perspective, there is a real possibility that we're only going to be able to afford the $150,000 for fiscal 23. And I guess I'm wondering where that would leave us, like with next steps. Would we have to approach the state somehow and say, hey, we might need you to help subsidize this? What would we do in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it would be something that they could do in perpetuity. And I hope it goes without saying, and Chiefs, I hope will back me up on this, and the captain. We've done anything and everything we can to secure as much support and grant funding as we possibly can for all of the member towns. If this is something that is just undoable for Plympton for this year, I will stand with the Chiefs, with you, Liz, whoever, in front of the executive director and the 911 Commission and lobby for additional funding. I would do that in any year. We've been very fortunate that in the competitive side of the grant house from 911, the development side, we're far and away one of the leaders in grant recipient funding. So, we've brought in nearly $15 million since Plympton joined the regional. And I think the Chiefs will attest. We've bought an incredible amount of infrastructure and hardware, software, everything else. This assessment, I understand it's a big tick. I will do everything I can to lobby 911 for additional grant support to offset that. We also have, and the biggest piece here, I know you've received a couple of letters, Liz, now, our enterprise fund accounting mechanism is deep into the legislation now. It's been approved by the House. It's in the Senate's Committee on Third Reading as we speak. So I do expect that to be passed prior to July. That alone will allow more transparency. This is the whole purpose of this, is transparency for the member towns, but it'll also give us an opportunity to have funds in reserve. So if things like this do happen, there's fund reserves from, whether it's from grants or awards or previous year savings. So when something like this does come up, the Rock will always do what we can to support our member towns. Plympton in particular.
And Mike, I think no one questions the fact that the Rock has been, I think, a leader in a lot of ways on securing grants. I mean, look at the facility you have. It's absolutely spectacular. No one's denying that. But you did mention infrastructure, and you know as well as I do, we've been waiting 3 years for some things. Yet I see other towns getting it. Station alerting system, pre-COVID, haven't heard a thing. Security cameras, no, not yet. Don't know where they are. MDTs, you did get us one. Thank you, appreciate that. We did finally get the call box in for the exterior. You did absolutely get us a repeater in the north end of town, which was badly needed. I appreciate that. But, there's still a lot of things out there that we don't have. We're trying to get. I have heard things are back ordered. Well, that may be true, but some of this stuff goes pre-COVID. We're talking about changing a lot of software you had mentioned. So we purchased Red Alert software at a sizable amount of money. And I know you're going through quite a bit with ESO with file transfers and such, but you know, we're stepping up and doing our part, but there's a lot of the stuff in the grants beside your fiscal end of it, as far as, you know, keeping the ship afloat. I get that. But there's been a lot of promises we don't have yet. And yet you want to charge me another 50 grand. So I'm a little bit, you know, I guess, sticker shock, in your words, I guess is a true statement. So all this stuff needs to be addressed, and I don't know where to go.
A couple comments.
For the red alert chief, I mean, that was, to put it bluntly, and that was your choice. I mean, we had the discussion there where I had the grant money to pay for the $87,000 red alert system, and you went for the COVID cares money, which is great. And it's awesome that opportunity was there.
Mike, that was not my choice. You never mentioned to me that I have any record of that we were possibly getting into able to get into red alert. You had told me, and we'll talk about this offline, but you had told me that your goal, which was a lofty goal and a good goal, was to get everybody on the same type of software. I don't recall anywhere that we had an opportunity for a grant for that. And frankly, if we did, I may still be waiting for, at least I would thought, I'm still waiting for a station alerting system. So there's a little problem there for me. Yeah, we did get it done with CARES money, so it didn't come out of my fiscal coffers. I agree with you there. But there's definitely a lack of communication here. And like I said, you know, is this a value-added package? Maybe for some, but I'm not seeing a lot of it. And, you know, before I become completely taking over a meeting, which I should not do, I'm going to just kind of back off right now and let everyone else in the discussion. But yeah, sticker shock is a good way to put it. And still waiting on some back orders. Thank you.
You know, one of the, go ahead, Mike, you wanted to.
Okay, I just a couple comments. Michael, I appreciate your sympathetic response to our predicament and willingness to lobby for us. We had the same problem 3 years ago on this call volume issue. It seems hard to conceptualize that a town with a quarter of the population of the other towns is generating as many calls. But more importantly than that, when we're all being assessed $200,000, we're a town of 3,000, as versus a town of 14,000. So we're asked, our 3,000 citizens are being asked to put the exact same bill as other towns with 14 or 16 or 18,000. And that's really pretty inequitable and really hard to handle. And that, of course, is what leads to our sticker shock and our wondering if we're even able to do this.
Well, it's not, you're not paying the same as the larger towns, whether it's Hanover or Duxbury or even Hanson. It's strictly Plympton, Rochester, and Halifax who are paying the same assessment. So Rochester is even smaller than you are, with a vastly larger geographic area.
What I don't understand is if each of the towns that you've shown on the cost per town is 200,000, and I agree with Mark, we're the smallest town. 80% of the calls are non-9/11 calls. So obviously we're doing something that's driving the call volume, that's making our share go up compared to other towns. And it seems like you ought to help us figure out what should we be doing differently if other towns are doing something different. This is the same conversation we had 3 years ago. What drives call volume? I don't see anything that's changed, and the concern which Mark has articulated is if you did this on a per person, if you took the residents of each town and divided in their assessment, it would be obviously unequal. And I don't see a way Plympton is going to get out of this unless we have a better idea of how to change our non-9/11 call volume. And it seems to me you should be helping us. And by the way, I'm one of the selectmen, so.
All right, I had a couple of questions too. My name's Christine Joy. I'm also on the Board of Selectmen. So Mike, is the money, the 911 grant money, does that go to the Rock? Are you getting it? So you're getting the funds for Halifax and Hanover? Or are they going somewhere else?
Yeah, they come to us.
Then why isn't it, if you're getting their share, why aren't we able to split this 6 ways now? Why do we need to wait?
It is in a sense. So when we use that same formula to calculate their assessment, but rather than quote unquote, the treasurer from Halifax, from Hanover rather, writing that check, the 911 Commission writes that check for their first 3 years. Just like when Plympton first joined and there was no cost, it came from the state. That's what they're enjoying right now. That's sort of the carrot on the string to get towns to join regionals, is in their first 3 years, the state will fund their assessment. But it is being split 6 ways. Their assessment's calculated using the same formula. We then tell the state, based on our assumptions and calculations, this is what I would have billed Hanover, and they pay it on their behalf. And same with Hanson.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Mike, on that one.
Does that mean, excuse me, Christine, so does that, this is
Go ahead.
Nate Sides, I'm in the finance committee. Does that mean that our assessment in fact will not go down? Because if it's already being split 6 ways, then we won't see the benefit of Hanover and Hanson joining?
No, we will in the long run, Nate. This is the thing with the enterprise fund coming into fruition. We have never seen anything but level funding or increased funding. In fact, during my tenure, the 911 support has done nothing but increase year after year. And if we do hypothetically add another community, you know, if Carver decides to come aboard, or Pembroke, now we're splitting 7 ways instead of 6, et cetera, et cetera.
I still don't follow you. You kind of contradicted what you said earlier, where you said that we would be split in another 2 years, we would be then splitting the cost 6 ways. And you just said that we are already splitting the cost 6 ways. So I don't understand how our $200,000 assessment will go down.
Because of the increase in support. So there's several separate grants from 911. So the development grant is what pays Hanson and Hanover's assessment now. Once their members not being covered under the development grant, the support grant will go up, which is a totally separate grant. So the assessment doesn't change. They are now writing their own check, for lack of a better term, and the support changes because the development is not there. So right now we get about $850,000 a year in support. Once both of those towns come out of the development project, we expect that to be over $1 million, which, as I said, the new way of calculating this is all of the grant money is taken off the top of the operating budget prior to calculating the assessments. So everyone receives their equitable share of all of the grant money, rather than any one town receiving more, like Hanover is now. You know, they're not paying anything. But once they come out of the development and into support, the grant money is split equitably more across the 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 communities, whatever we happen to have at the time.
So
This
how
was
do we
the-
explore, how do we explore the problem of call volume and the fact that our call volume seems so out of proportion to our population? How can we explore this and correct any inequities?
I mean, there's several avenues, but I don't think any of them are appetizing to citizens of the town, to be perfectly honest with you. You can stop doing traffic control, and I think Dan will tell me that that's not going to happen. There's, you know, Plympton, though it is a small town and, you know, not a lot of commercial base, there is an awful lot of traffic through the community, which generates motor vehicle crashes, medical calls. There's employees working at the Cisco that are coming and going. I don't know that there's an easy fix, Mark, to be honest, to shut down the call volume.
You know, 3 years ago, we were told that as new towns came on, there probably would be this reduction. And now we're hearing the same thing if Carver or somebody else comes on. But the experience is that we're going to be paying what everybody else is. And that just doesn't feel right. It feels even more inequitable as you go forward.
You know,
Mike-
John, you make a very good point and something to remember. And Mike, you said this, that maybe you were talking about the call volume. Maybe I misheard you about the size of the towns. But the fact of the matter is, we're just under 3,000 people. And Rochester is just about 6,000 people. And Halifax is about 7,800 people. So that's not the same size towns. So I guess population has nothing to do with it. It's strictly on how well we're policing, perhaps, or how many medicals and car accidents we're going to. I mean, I still don't get it. I just don't.
Mike, it's Christine again. Can I ask you, actually, I have got a contract specific question for you.
Sure.
And I don't know if you've got our contract in front of you, but let's see, it's Plympton's responsibilities. It's on page 4. It talks about basically if there's a failure of service where you're not able to provide dispatch, that the town shall assume all responsibilities at no expense to Duxbury. And to me, that does not seem fair. We would have to bring people in to serve as dispatch. And I think that there needs to be a provision in there where you either provide us with a credit for whatever 8 hours would be. I had it at $548 because it's going to cost us money to provide that service. And I just think that that's something that that we need to look at. I don't think it happens very often. I don't know if it's ever happened, but I think that we need a provision in there where you either credit us or there's some type of reimbursement if we have to provide the dispatch service.
Yep, I'm certainly willing to entertain that, Christine. That's why I send the document as a Word document, so it is editable. That clause is something that's just boilerplate from the state that is in all of the intermunicipal agreements. That, as you said, that it has never happened. God forbid, I hope it does never happen. There's some additional language we can add in there right out of the gate before it would ever come to the point of Plympton assuming dispatch responsibilities. You would need to have a failure of not only the Rock, but also the Foxborough Regional, which is our backup. It would have to be a catastrophic earthquake, tornado, something like that.
All right, well, maybe we could just tighten that up.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
That's why they are editable documents.
Great.
I'm open to
And
any other
then
suggestions.
in the event that you do receive more grant money than you're anticipating, then more than $365,000, will we get a credit for our portion of that? Does it go towards next year's assessment? How does that work in the event more money came in?
That's sort of in response to Liz's question from earlier. With the advent of this enterprise fund, if there was an increase in grant funding or things like that, and the enterprise is allowed to carry a balance, then it would be applied to the following year's assessments.
All right. I'm wondering if the town would be eligible to apply for like a community compact grant for shared services, because this is a shared service to help offset our cost of the your services.
Potentially, I don't know for sure, but I do know that membership to the Rock has granted eligibility for community compact grants for several. Rochester got some IT stuff. I believe Halifax did something with GIS, so the potential is there. Certainly.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike, very much.
Christine,
Any other questions for Mike?
Yeah, Christine, can I make a quick comment?
Absolutely, John.
I mean, I'm still stuck on the numbers thing again. It would seem that we should be able to look at, Mike, I completely get your point. You know, we're not going to stop providing services, but there seems to be this disconnect in the numbers for Plympton's size and the amount of calls. And if we've got the calls, there's, certainly, using a service, you generally have to pay for a service, right? That's the sort of way that things work. But having this disconnect between Rochester, Halifax, and Plympton, I do think we need to look at this, as far as the buckets of types of calls and understand what is driving, Plympton to be the same as towns that are double or more the size of them. And until we do that, we're not going to be able to understand or alter behavior or try and figure out if we have certain calls going up that don't need to go to the Rock that could be handled in a different way. Because there's clearly a disconnect, which is possibly why many of the folks who've made comments tonight are having difficulty sort of getting their head around this. So, I do think we need to look at the numbers more.
Absolutely, John. And to other John, to Mr. Trainer's point too, I'm absolutely happy to do that. John Trainer, you had said, we should be helping you, and I want to do that. I will pull more of these reports, put some sheets together. I mean, everything is public record anyway, but I'm happy to meet again, put a little bit more of a presentation together with some hard numbers that you can really look at, some spreadsheets, so we can look at apples to apples.
Yeah.
Just to show, I'm not pulling this out of thin air or making anything up.
Maybe we should have a little committee, just sit down when Chief Silva or one of his people.
I was going to ask, the Chief Silva and I discussed this earlier today, as well as with Chief Hoffman. We were hoping that you would empower us to do some research and kind of work this from the other side of things. And then obviously we could report back to the larger board as a whole, but maybe in the interim, keeping the BOS chair and the FinCom chair kind of apprised of where the discussion goes. But we're happy to take the lead on this and
sounds good.
Work on some different ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I want this to be successful for everybody, and I want it to be fiscally feasible for everybody. I mean, I don't make money off charging you money, just to put that out there. So, whatever I can do to save money and bring things in, and Chief Silva, I know you're waiting on things, and I'm battling for you. And believe it or not, I spend, Deputy Crean can back me up on this. I spend the vast majority of my day yelling at vendors that we've been waiting for things for far too long, in my opinion. So, hold fast, and we will get you anything you need. And we continue to do so. And Dan, same to you. I know, we've outfitted you with a lot of computers and things like that. The security cameras are starting to roll in now for both facilities. And Chief Silva, hopefully someday we're talking about a new fire station, and the Rock can leverage its grant success to outfit that with anything that you need as well.
I'll hold you to that one, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Dan, did you have any questions? We've all been kind of hogging it.
No questions as of now. I'm kind of just seeing how things work.
Very good. All right. Well, I hope there is something that we can do about it, because right now it just kind of has the feeling that we're in that same, we're lumped in with those two guys, and 200,000 is where we're going to be. And I just don't think that's a place we can live. And
I
as a
will,
town.
as I hope, as evidence from 3 years ago when we had a similar discussion, we're certainly willing to work with you and help, and whether we stretch that out or whatever the case may be. So by all means, Liz and the chiefs, if we can get together and try to dial this in some, we're glad to do so. Like I said, it's not like a private entity where I'm turning a profit off of any of this. So I mean, if we can shave $1 here, $1 there, I'm all for it.
Great. Thanks, Mike. We appreciate that. It certainly will help, and it'll help us to get a better idea, a handle as to why our call volume is so high, and that our cost as a result is so high. So thank you, Liz, and Chief Silva. I'm not sure if Chief Hoffman is going to be in that mix too, but thank you all for your work with both Joe and Mike to help us get to the bottom of this and see what we can do to reduce our costs. So thank you so much for coming. Is there any
Absolutely.
final
Glad to be here.
questions for either Deputy Director or Mike before we let them go? All right, seeing no hands here. Oh, looked like Chief Silva. Did you have one for the road?
I was just going to say thank you, Mike and Joe. You know, I might have come on a little strong, but budgets are budgets. Nothing
No,
personal.
Chief,
Thank you.
completely understandable. And I hope you know, we thoroughly enjoy working with you and look forward to talking some more.
Likewise.
Make sure.
Great.
Hard
Thank you
feelings
so much for
by any
coming. We
means.
really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody who's been in attendance to help us work through this challenging issue. So thank you very much for coming. And I'm sure that Liz and Dan and Steve will be in touch with you and probably Captain Schusted as well to try to figure this out.
Great.
So thank you so
Thank you
much for
all.
coming. We appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you giving us the time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good night. All right, so we really have worked through our agenda. So our next meeting is going to be on the 28th. And at that point, I think the plan was to talk to the applicant for the Zen, which I think we could probably all use a little Zen right now. And I don't think we've got anything else on that agenda so far.
Christine, we had town meeting preparations. I'm not
Oh,
sure
yeah,
what that
thank
meant.
you. I went right over that. I crossed, actually, I didn't cross it off yet, but I thought I did. All right, Liz, town meeting preparation.
Nothing really new on this. I did send out a reminder to all the town departments, boards and committees just about the deadline for warrant articles. So nothing really new to report on that.
Okay.
So the next time we meet, the warrant will have be closing, right?
Automatically that evening. Well, one of them does, based on our bylaws. I think it reads that it closes at 8 p.m. the last Monday in March. And then
the annual.
We've been grouping the special kind of in with that as well. And according to town council, based on questions in prior years, you don't need to vote to formally close it. It will be deemed closed upon that time frame.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz, very much. And thanks, John, for reminding me that I forgot that one. John, Nate, looks like Nate's gone. Dan, Captain Schusted, Steve, did any of you want to have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
All set here. Looking forward to working through this dispatch problem.
Great. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much for coming. It really was a good discussion, and hopefully we can do something to reduce our costs. All right. So next meeting is 3/28. Then the meeting following that will be April 11th. And I'm sure 3/28 and April 11th, we'll be talking more about the budget because the warrant will be closed and we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at. Being that we have no additional business, it's time for Rants and Raves. So did John or Mark, did you want to go first?
Go for it, John.
Yeah, I was thinking all day, what am I going to rave about? I think, I guess my rave is for Kathy Lenatra. We've been, the library's been hosting this speaker series the first Saturday of each month. And Kathy is always gracious enough when you need a speaker, she's there. And I thought she did a good job last Saturday talking through the services that her office provides. And I got follow-up from a couple of people the next day saying that based on their feedback, she had actually reached out, or her office had reached out to them. So it's good. We have a good rep.
Yeah, she's probably one of the most active reps we've had. Tom O'Brien was really active, but then there was
Yeah.
kind of, once he left, a little bit of a lull. So yeah, she's doing a really nice job.
It's in the water. I think it's the DNA in the water.
That Kingston water?
It's our aquifer.
All right, well, I'll go next. My rave is for the courage of the Ukrainian people who are defending their country, their homes, and their lives. And I would hope that we as Americans would show the same resolve if conflict ever reached our shores. There really are. It's amazing. It's such a horrible situation, but all the people in throughout the world that are stepping up to help them, the refugees, it's an amazing and heartwarming through a very terrible situation. So that's my rave.
So I'd underscore both the previous raves, and then I guess my rave is for the time of year, that it's budget creation time, that it's preparing for town meeting. Kind of a busy time, but we kind of lay out the foundation for the whole year. And it's a busy time, and no matter how we feel, we just got a lot of work to do and got to get to it. And kind of a pleasure to be in that mode.
All right. So that's it for us tonight. This has been kind of a long meeting, but thank you all so much for joining us. So on that note, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mrs. Joy, yes. All right, thank you. Have a great night.
Right.